So guys, we have the annoying part out of the way. We should be at our first castle at Schloss Linderhof in roughly about 20 minutes. Alright, so as we're driving through the Bavarian countryside here, you know, it's all this kind of very Bavarian style architecture, these Hütten, these kind of houses, the mountains, the lovely kind of autumnal colours. Then you guys are kind of looking out the window going, that's kind of nice. That feeling you're having is a German word for it. It's called Gemütlichkeit, which means kind of a comfort or a coziness. There's no direct English translation for the word, but it's gemütlich in German. The Dutch call it gezellig, and the Norwegians call it hygelig, but in German it's called Gemütlichkeit. And our King Ludwig II, he very much loved the Bavarian countryside, hence building his castles down here. So the first one we were going to visit was originally a hunting lodge that was owned by his father, but he had that eventually knocked down and built his replacement castle, his Schloss Linderhof. And then the second, Neuschwanstein, is close to another castle where Ludwig spent most of his childhood. But he loved the Bavarian countryside. He was a man with a great sense of his own destiny, but of course to have a sense of your destiny you need to understand your own past. So I was telling you guys earlier that the monks were the first people to settle where the city of Munich now is. Then the city was founded by a man called Henrik the Löwen, Henry the Lion. But Henry the Lion, he was becoming too powerful. At the time, Germany as a country didn't exist, but there was another entity here. Of course, the land was here, and it was called the Heilige Romanische Reich, or the Holy Roman Empire. So, of course, an empire would have an emperor, and the emperor of this Reich, of this empire, was a man called Frederick Barbarossa. So his cousin was Henry the Lion. Henry the Lion was the Duke of Saxony, somewhere in northern Germany, and he wanted to get involved in the salt trade. So he came down to Bavaria and he started building lots of bridges and charging taxes. But he founded the city of Munich and various other kind of towns around Munich. But he was becoming too powerful. So his cousin, the emperor, he removed Henrik the Löwen, Henry the Lion, from power. He sent him into exile. He ended up dying in Britain. But he installed a man in his position, a man who would become the Duke of Bavaria. Alright, and his name was Otto von Wittelsbach. Otto von Wittelsbach's family then ruled Bavaria from 1180 all the way until 1918. They were one of the longest ruling dynasties anywhere in the world, and our King Ludwig II was a descendant of this man, Otto von Wittelsbach. So he was a man born to be king. Ludwig II gets his lifetime, so I'm going to kind of jump around through time. But so we were back there in the 12th century with Henry the Lion, and then the start of this ruling Wittelsbacher dynasty. So pretty much any king or queen or duke or duchess we end up talking about today, unless I kind of tell you otherwise, they were all members of this royal family, of this house of Wittelsbach. The reason some of you guys might not have heard of them, so they only ever ruled Bavaria, and they were quite content with that. Bavaria was always kind of a very affluent part of the German-speaking world, and they were always able to stay in power because they were making deals with more powerful entities. So the Hohenzollerns in northern Germany, and the Habsburgs to the south of here in Austria, and also then the Bourbons in France, and then later Napoleon also in France. So Bavaria, for a long time, it was a duchy, and of course a duchy, just like a kingdom would have a king or a queen, a duchy would have a duke or a duchess. So it was a duchy all the way up until 1806. And then as Napoleon Bonaparte was wandering around Europe and on his way to Russia, the Wittelsbachers saw what way the wind was blowing. They kind of thought they should side with Napoleon or fight against him. They saw him as too powerful, so they decided to side with Napoleon. So in 1806, Napoleon turned Bavaria into a kingdom. And then the Wittelsbachers swore an oath of allegiance to the Emperor Napoleon. So it became a kingdom. They could call themselves kings and queens instead of